The story starts with a girl being interviewed, saying she's a pretty experienced player, but he drags everyone solo. Another guy, on the other hand, said that he always fought fiercely and killed all the bosses without difficulty, but he makes it look so easy. They all gave interviews censored in front of their eyes for anonymity, while the third one said he was up because of him because he stole 3 kills. Meanwhile, a girl who was watching him play live decided to ask if he was a cyber athlete. Everyone wondered who he was, but all they could do was watch as notifications poured in that this player had made a killing. People confirmed that his techniques were stronger than all of theirs combined, making him a virtually unkillable player. People who were teammates with him have personally seen him single-handedly tackle dozens of mobs without taking damage. They were sure that this is not just a player, but a real genius, which in this game simply has no equal. Online, many people have asked if Sunny is a great god or a mediocrity, a hidden talent or an utter worthlessness. Who the hell he is? He alone is able to sweep an entire location, earning a reward for himself alone. But his pumping doesn't end there. The most popular game right now is Glory. In this game, the account login is done with a special card. It has become commonplace in the world of gaming. Cybersports tournaments have become more exciting and interesting. There is also an account dubbed God of War. Its owner's name is Sunny, who is known as the best player in Glory. There were hardly any players like him, and those who were still didn't reach his level no matter how hard they tried. On a snowy winter evening, a meeting was being held at Team Era's operations base, which was the starting point for Sunny. When he entered the threshold, the first thing he was told was to turn his God of War player card, to which the guy reacted with indifference. They decided to hand over the role of team leader to the new recruit, Sebastian. Today, he would become the owner of the God of War. The manager added that he was the Rookie of the Year according to the Professional Alliance. Sebastian himself cursorily apologized. He also added that he had taken his place as soon as he arrived here, but there was not an ounce of regret on his face, only a smirk. Suddenly, a blonde-haired girl ran into the room, loudly and disgruntled, asking how they could have been so rude. Everyone looked at the guest in surprise, who stated that Sunny was single-handedly pumping up the War God account. Marie angrily kept saying that all of his 10 years of hard work was in there, so they couldn't just pick up and replace him. The manager clarified that the account belongs to the team and not to him personally. During the 2 years, he was the leader. Era was at the bottom of the rankings. The God of War account should be played by Sebastian. Only in this way would his full potential be revealed. All the team members agreed with him. The girl was furious. I don't understand how dare they say that. However, Sunny put his hand on her shoulder to stop her. She glanced at the guy who silently waved his head at her, hinting at her not to continue this conflict. The manager's patience was also running out. So, he raised his voice, asking him to give the card to Sebastian. The silent guy stepped forward with his head slightly lowered, and then there was a small pause that stretched for quite a while. Sunny stuck his hand behind his sinus, approaching Sebastian while Marie watched his actions worriedly. When he saw the card, the rookie thought he had moved to this half-dead team for this account to become the best in the world. Sunny held out his hand, handing the newcomer the coveted card. Looking at it, the blonde man broke into a smile, not believing his happiness. He was one step away from being the strongest. All he had to do was pick up a card and start the game. Suddenly, Sebastian froze with a surprised look on his face, asking Sunny what he was doing because he didn't want to let go of the card. The blonde man said that Sunny's hand was trembling. Could it reveal the truths of the War God's potential? And so, he asked to give it to him. To be more convincing, he promised that the God of War would be known by every Glory player, but it didn't work. He was then directly asked to leave, but Sunny first raised his voice by asking Sebastian if he liked the game. He didn't understand what the question was about, so he only looked at the former member of Team Era unhappily. Still holding the card, Sunny said if he did, let him prove that he was willing to do anything for her, not just brag. After saying that, he let go of the card, telling her to take care of it, while the blonde man looked at him in surprise. The former account holder headed for the exit, not wanting to continue a conversation that was obviously useless and would lead nowhere. At that very second, Sebastian jumped up from his chair, irritably asking Sunny to repeat what he had just said. The manager said their team doesn't have any cards for him, so he can just be their coach. Sebastian confirmed that with his skills, only he was worthy of being their coach. However, it sounded like a tease. Looking at a distraught Marie, Sunny decided that he would decline the offer because being a coach was clearly not for him. He then asked the manager to cancel his contract, to which he responded with an ambiguous smirk. Marie loudly asked the guy to take his time because he would have to pay a huge fine because of it, but he didn't care. The manager smiled, stating that he simply didn't have enough money to pay for it. But that didn't catch on with Sunny either. The man added that Sunny has always been a celebrity, but has consistently refused to appear in commercials or even interviews. He has great money-making potential, but he hasn't brought the team a dime. Although, with his potential, that's ridiculous. Adding to the fact that he has to give financial support to his senior fellows. It's strange that he doesn't want to get paid. Looking at the guy, Sebastian said that a famous player like Sonny had no money, and he didn't even know it. Turning around, Sonny asked with a calm look to tell him straight out what conditions he wouldn't have to pay the fine with. Taking the notebook in hand, the manager replied that he didn't want to complicate things, so he only offered to announce his departure. Then, they would have no problem taking care of the fine. Hearing this made Marie angry again at the manager's horrible attitude. She said he was well aware of the rules, which state that a player who announces his departure can only leave after 1 year. Plus, he's 25 years old. If he stops practicing and playing, he won't be able to join the team anymore. Taking the notebook from the manager's hands, Sonny said that he had worked constantly all these years, and there was nothing wrong with taking 1 year off. Signing the statement, the guy thought about the fact that the contract for his departure was prepared a long time ago, which means that they were preparing in advance. While the manager scrutinized the application, Sonny headed for the exit again, while Marie asked him to stop. The rest of the team paid no attention to their departure, surrounding Sebastian and congratulating him on his new position as leader. When they left the building, Sonny said it was very cold today, so he asked the girl not to walk him out. Marie paused, asking what he was going to do now, for she was uneasy about the fact that he had been kicked out so easily. With a wave of his hand, the boy replied that he would rest for a year and then return, his voice expressing no true emotion. After which he silently headed forward while Marie remained standing still, her eyes wet with tears. Walking down the street, the guy thought that one day things would change, although he didn't like sudden changes. On top of that, today it really is cold. Stopping outside one establishment, Sonny, covered in snow, thought that the first thing to do is to find a place to hide from the cold. Without thinking much about it, he walked into the Happy Internet Cafe, where he was going to relax and have a good time. Go up to the manager. He asked if he could stay here for a while. The girl asked for his ID card to check in. After looking around the computer room, the guy noticed that the place was quite large. The manager pointed out that it's instead of 47. Thanking her, he headed out into the hall. Not hearing the girl asked him to pick up the ID card while she herself watched the drama. Walking a little further, Sonny found the area where his seat was supposed to be, but he decided to take his time. The very second he noticed that his seat was already taken by some girl who was frantically clacking away at her keyboard and mouse. He noticed that she was playing Glory, but it didn't embarrass him in the slightest. Even on the contrary, he watched her actions carefully. She screamed that she would shoot him even if she spent all her bullets. This incredibly loud girl's name was Shawnee. At the moment, she was fighting against some man, saying that he wouldn't hide, then asked to taste his bullets. Sonny noticed her playing as a machine gunner, remembering that Marie used to play as one all the time, too, but not as emotionally. It occurred to him to talk to Marie, who had always been on his side and had always sought justice. She always started the game with a smile, listening to the other players shouting loudly. And after she won, she would only apologize. And looking at the way Shawnee is screaming right now, the guys made the verdict that they're both pretty scary when they're playing. The girl was now like a devil who had begun to punish all his victims. Unwilling to turn down the volume, she caught the attention of the nearby seated players the most, who watched in amazement as she lowered her head to the keyboard, stating that she'd blown it again. The girl turned her head, spotting Sonny, asking if he needed that computer. Taking off her headphones, she sadly motioned for him to sit down, thinking about the fact that she had lost 52 matches in a row. That being said, she's been playing Glory for 5 years. The opponent shouldn't be stronger than her. He should at least be a rank master. While she was seriously thinking about her total defeat, someone told her that this guy was using her account. Shani turned her head dumbfounded, hoping she was just being played. But seeing it with her own eyes, she was scared. Running to Sonny and Us remembered that she had forgotten to log out and therefore was worried about her money and gear. Holding out her hand, she rudely asked the guy to stop. Hitch asked who gave him permission to touch this. However, he paid no attention. Pulling back her chair, Shawnee glanced at the screen, which bets that he had already blown the rink. At this time, Sonny only stared at her in silence. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed the screen labeled victory, which she couldn't get in 52 attempts. The girl asked if he had won. However, the guy continued to remain silent, giving the girl time to rejoice. Even Shawnee, considered a veteran in 5 years of playing, has already lost 52 times, and he just picked up a win like nothing happened. Sonny glanced at the girl, waiting for her to finish cheering so he could continue to play quietly and take his mind off his problems. He explained that she forgot to get out of the game. When he sat down, the match had already started. In response, the girl asked how long the match lasted. In a calm tone, the guy replied that just under 40 seconds. Such information made Shawnee freeze in a stupor. Sunny started blowing on his palms, saying his hands were freezing or he would have been able to finish in 30 seconds. But he was out of luck. Shawnee looked at the guy in excitement, thinking about him being so strong. She figured he was a pro, remembering the team closest to them. Only Gorgeous Arrow was next to them, but she only knows everyone from there if a pro who never showed her face. Covering her lips with her palms, Shawnee looked at the guy again in shock, realizing that it was the same Sunny sitting next to her. Meanwhile, the guy only nonchalantly adjusted his headphones, pretending he hadn't done anything special. The girl could not be happy with her luck because right now a professional player was sitting next to her. She wanted to question him at all costs, and she reached out to touch him, but stopped at the last moment. She thought about the fact that someone as unsociable as Sunny might not like that, so she decided to refrain in order not to distract the guy. Schnei carefully skipped past him to get all the information from the receptionist. Quickly running up to the girl behind the counter, she loudly asked me to do something for her because it was very important. Without letting the girl agree, Shawnee asked what name the person sitting in Area C in the 47th seat was registered under. The receptionist immediately gave her a name, which the girl was very happy about because she was right, and she was very lucky. She took a pad and pen to ask him to autograph her. The receptionist added that he even forgot his ID. Turning around, Shawnee remembered that people use their real name to register here, so she asked to see the map. Glancing at his ID, she noticed that his name was Chani, then realized that they were just similar names. Dropping her pen and notebook on the floor, Shawnee practically cried, for she had hoped she had met a famous person. When she got back to the guy, she handed him the ID, saying he forgot it at the front desk. He thanked her and asked if she worked here. Sighing heavily, the girl replied that she owned the place and therefore sometimes allowed herself to relax. Sunny replied that he had seen the job ad, then asked what about his candidacy, since he was competent enough to do it. Plus, he liked the terms. Shawnee agreed, figuring she wanted to get to know him better anyway, and that wasn't a bad excuse. She smiled and said that if he wanted to work for her, there was something he had to do, and that was to win a fight with her in glory. He read the ad again, asking if it said such a thing, but the girl smirked and replied that she had just made it up. Sunny thought he played the last match too well, so she wants to know his abilities, then replied that he can't beat her. Schnei asked why, to which he replied that he didn't have an account from which he could fight her, nor did he have a level or gear. Looking questioningly at the guy, the girl said she would never believe such a thing, but Sunny added that he had an account but gave it away. She noticed that if the operation was solely on his skill, his account was worth a lot of money. He was generous enough since he gave his account to someone. The guy agreed and then heard a question asking if he was going to start today on the new server. This got him interested. Schnei that glory will turn 10 years old at midnight tonight, and that's when the new 10th server launches. That's the reason it's so crowded. The owner of the computer club smiled sweetly and added that it has become a tradition to start a new server every birthday. Spreading her arms joyfully, Shawnee said loudly that the 10th server, which many people have been waiting for, was just launching at midnight tonight. Sunny hesitated, saying that as far as he remembered, you could pre-register for the new server to be ready to play in advance. Schnei agreed with surprise, adding that he would need a blank account for that. She wondered what he was going to do. Opening his wallet, Sunny began to search through it for something while the girl watched his manipulations carefully. Having found the card, the guy decided to try it out and then inserted it into a special device, which immediately began to read information. Seeing the card, Shawnee asked if he hadn't said he'd given up his account, then began to stare intently at the monitor, slamming her hands on the table. The girl dumbfoundedly declared that this could not be because such cards were distributed 10 years ago. Sunny confirmed that this card is from the first draws. She asked if he's been playing for 10 years. Bare even she only started playing 5 years ago. She reflected on the fact that he's a veteran who's been playing for 10 years. Now it makes sense where he got his skills from. He gave up his previous accounts going to start from scratch on a new server. She was even more curious as to who he was. When the guy announced he was done, Shawnee read his nickname, Grimlord, saying he could now play safely on the new server. Taking the card in hand, Sunny leaned back in his chair, remembering the two people he'd started playing Glory with together. Putting a hand on his shoulder, Shawnee asked if he wanted a job as a systems administrator. The guy said, preferably on night shifts. Reaching out, the pry for him to follow her, thinking that she had gotten the ultimate nugget. It was all too fortunate, because he wants a night shift, and he also has a decade of experience in the game, and his aura is just like a real pro. After a while, she brought him to the apartment, told him that only a couple people lived on this floor, and now he would be living here. After looking around the apartment and setting down the crate of keyboards, the guy thought that not only did she provide food and blood, but the furnishings here were pretty good. So quickly made the decision to leave the magnificent era without even having any clear plan for the future. And now, by fate, he started living here. At this time, Schnei decided to show him his new room. Looking inside, Sunny noticed that it hadn't undergone any renovations. Shawnee said it might be uncomfortable, but that was only at first. The girl admitted that she had no need for extra workers and that the ad he was looking at was very old. The guy immediately realized what was wrong. However, it wasn't a problem for him. Everything suited him. Glancing at the clock, Shawnee announced that they needed to hurry up. Sunny didn't immediately realize what he was talking about, while the joyful owner grabbed his hand and pulled him along, telling him it would start soon. Turning around, she smiled, explaining that there were only 7 minutes left until the 10th server opened, and therefore they needed to be in place. The guy asked if she wanted to start the game on the 10th server since her account from the 5th was already quite good, but she didn't pay attention to him. Instead, she pointed out how crowded the place was, thinking it was all to test his skills. At this time, there were indeed a lot of people in the room, eagerly discussing the opening of the new server. Shawnee dragged the guy into the hall, relentlessly repeating that it was almost time and they must not waste a minute or they might be late. She sat him down at a free computer, telling him that they didn't have much time and therefore needed to get into the game as soon as possible. They managed to get in as everyone was loudly chanting the 5-second countdown, and the clock was almost showing midnight, encouraging the players. Sunny and Schnei stared intently at the monitor, which was also counting down the time after which they would be able to log into the server. As soon as the meter reached 0, the girl exclaimed loudly, then looked dumbfounded at the guy reading the beginner's manuals. She stated that he has decades of experience in the game, so why the hell is he reading a beginner's guide? But he replied that he hasn't read one in years. Shawnee asked that he had never helped a newcomer level up, noting that he was wasting his skills. Sunny replied that he hadn't. She asked what he was doing then, asking him not to say he was working, but the guy claimed his job was to play the game. The girl then cheerfully asked if he was a pro after all. Then no wonder he won in just 40 seconds. She then leaned back in her chair, asking if he had retired. He asked in response how she knew about it. The girl replied that it was understandable because he was no longer at that age. And besides, he seemed to be a regular amateur. She knows all the professionals around, but has never heard of Chani, which makes one wonder who he is, if not an amateur. She asked him not to yell at him, asking if he'd been kicked out and what the reason was, figuring he couldn't get a foothold in the lineup. These questions brought Sunny back to yesterday, when the manager announced that Sebastian would replace him as captain. From now on, the War God's account will be his, and he must resign. Then the girl realized that she had said something that offended you. She immediately started apologizing, asking the guy to forget everything she said, but he only calmly replied that it was okay. Schnei decided to console him, telling him that 25 wasn't a verdict. He needed some practice, and he could get back into the fight. The corners of the guy's lips lifted slightly, after which he replied that he thought so too, and therefore he didn't have time to get upset. Smacking her fist on her palm, the owner hesitantly said that when this day was done, she would have one request for him. She asked for help getting an autograph from someone. When asked who from, the girl said Marie and Sunny's. While it may be difficult, he's quite unlikable. Meanwhile, Sunny himself was shocked that she didn't believe it was him. Shawnee said loudly that no one knows who Sunny really is. He never showed his face. The guy didn't answer that he knew that. He then asked if she wanted to know a secret. She immediately perked up her ears. The guy stated softly that he was the same Sunny. Leaning over, the girl replied that she wanted to confess to him too. She was actually Mari, then laughed, asking who he was trying to fool. The guy repeated that he was indeed Sunny, to which the owner replied that she was indeed Marie, followed by an awkward pause. She then sat down at her computer, asking him to keep reading her guide, adding that if he had any questions, let him ask. The guy started to comment out loud on the guide, to which Shawnee asked him to read to the end. It already says which missions are worth going through and which are not. Sunny grabbed his head, asking himself if he was really going to have to follow this guide, wondering what he had gotten himself to. And after he was done with his reading, Sunny created his character, then began to dive into the game world. When the download finished, he found an incredible amount of level 1 folk around him. It was hard to see anything because of the nicknames. As in any other RPG, the character appeared in the initial newcomer village where each player is just starting out. Suddenly, Sunny heard behind him the stomping of dozens of pairs of feet and shouts that the quests and the item were right there. And whoever had time was the slipper. Shawnee, who was observing this, smilingly said that it's always like this on new servers. Everyone wants to leave the initial location as soon as possible. A crowd gathered around the only quest character as the girl talked about how this game was truly worthy of its name. She asked to hurry up and turn the quest, but there was a long line to reach the grandmother who needed firewood. The rest of the characters were also quite hard to get to, and yet some of the quests were quite easy. A lot of people wrote in chat that anyone who breaks the queue and wants to squeeze and will get a slap in the face from their guild. After a while, Sunny paid attention to the character stats, saying that he had finally gotten level 7. Looking closer, he noticed that he already had 340 skill points, and so he was ready to get the initial skills. When he approached the master, he told him that he had found the right person, after which Sunny began to learn various abilities. His character immediately began to glow, showing that the new abilities had been successfully learned, after which they needed to be tested as soon as possible. First of all, he activated acceleration, after which he used a somersault to reach the other primary skill master faster. This master decided to show him how battle mages fight, advising him to learn Dragon Fong, an excellent stun ability. Without hesitation, the guy studied this skill, after which he went to other masters to study attack and defense abilities. His arsenal was enriched with a wide variety of skills, including healing, which could save him at any moment. Shawnee asked in shock why he had so many abilities for and why he was learning skills from different classes. After all, you'd have to change class after level 20, but she couldn't believe he was going to play without a class at all. He should know that classless players can only choose abilities up to level 20 and below. Even all classes have been introduced. Why Sunny sold the bronze sword? And Schnei asked why he sold his only starter weapon and how he was going to fight now. Without answering anything, the lad made his way to the warehouse manager, who offered to let him keep any item he wanted to keep. Opening the door to the warehouse, the lad made his way to the wooden chest that would hold what he needed right now. Opening the box, a blinding light poured from within, which at first made it impossible to see the contents of the chest. Sunny retrieved the umbrella of 1,000 probabilities from there, while Shawnee asked if he really kept the homemade weapons in storage. She thought that silver weapons couldn't be obtained so easily. It took a lot of materials to create such weapons. With each passing second, she was getting more and more curious as to who this guy was while he equipped the umbrella. Some time ago, he had been told that it was more than enough. The umbrella of 1,000 probabilities at level 5 was much stronger than a level 10 orange weapon. In that second, the guy made the decision to try to improve this weapon as soon as possible. That was his original goal. After a while, Sunny reached the green forest that required a team of 5. There was already a crowd of people gathered there looking for the group. Going around the area, the guy noticed a huge number of people, but he first decided to check the information. From here, he needs some rare materials for the umbrella of 1,000 probabilities, but he needs to pay to find hidden boss. He activated, allowing others to invite him to the group, after which dozens of notifications popped up in front of his face. The hero decided not to be particularly selective and chose the first invitation that came up, which was missing one person. When he joined the group, Sunny asked in the group chat how they would distribute the loot from hidden boss. Another player remarked that this guy likes to daydream, then said that they would distribute all the dropped rewards for luck. When Sunny agreed, the group leader invited everyone into the dungeon, and then everyone began to enter the dungeon, waiting for the rest of the members. A player under the nickname Sleepy Moon asked everyone to be very careful and to follow him. Then everything will be fine. 3 of the group said they were playing for the first time, so they were lucky to have someone with more experience in the group and therefore counted on them. After which, Sleepy Moon began to push a motivational speech while the others only agreed and laughed. Suddenly, the leader of the group turned to the Grim Lord, wondering why he was writing when he could talk. With a cigarette in his mouth, the guy shifted his gaze to Shawnee, who had managed to fall asleep in the meantime, laying down right on the table next to him. Sunny wrote in the chat that he couldn't because someone was sleeping nearby, a response that left the team stunned with surprise. The blonde man said that anyway, it was just a small dungeon. It wasn't necessary to communicate to win. Sleepy Moon stated that it wouldn't be a problem for a veteran like him. If he wants to type, let him type. The main thing is not to slow down. Suddenly, a strong wind arose. Amid switch, an approaching rustle could be heard. The whole crew immediately tensed up. At the same second, a system alert appeared that the boss of this dungeon, Midnight Ghost Cat, was approaching. Sleepy Moon stated that it couldn't be because what were the odds that as soon as there was talk of a hidden boss, he would immediately appear? The healer girl asked fearfully how they were going to fight him, and the rest of the group also felt kind of uneasy. The leader of the group said, "There is nothing to fear. He will tank rather than stand behind him and wait for him to focus his attention on himself. But you have to be careful. This cat is very fast. The main thing is not to panic, and then they will be fine." He began to explain that MTS are the main tank. They soak up a huge amount of damage due to the fact that they have the most armor and health. The tank attacks first because of the provocation. All the enemy's attention will be focused on it, and therefore the others must attack as long as the provocation of the others does not exceed that of the main tank. They could do anything to deal damage. And if they make a mistake and a monster is distracted by them, it's OT, off tank. After a detailed explanation, Everyone stated they understood everything. At the same second, the rustling began to increase, and a quick movement was heard between the trees, which meant the boss was here. Sunny, who was holding his cigarette in his teeth, mentally prepared a battle plan against the boss, deciding to take a look at the others first. No one had time to react to the attack of the animal, which decided to attack the weakest members of the group first. Fallen Sun lost half of his health in a second because he didn't notice the beast attacking him from behind, so he was on the verge of death. This problem Sunny solved in a flash, extending his arm in front of him and casting a healing spell aimed at his ally. His health immediately began to recover, and the guy thanked him, saying that he had already decided he was going to die and couldn't continue. Sleepy Moon shouted that if he continued to stand there like a statue, he would definitely move the horses. He also added that the cat was in the back. Turning around, the boy and girl noticed a huge ghostly cat approaching them, with the tips of its ears burning with blue flames. Without any signal or warning, the animal rushed forward, unwilling to give its opponents an advantage in numbers. The enchantress immediately cried out in fright, while Fallen Sun pointed 2 pistols at the cat, which he held with shaking hands. However, he was unable to shoot, but Sleeping Month immediately jumped out to help him, and he put his sword in front of him, taking the blow for himself. The beast's sharp claws scraped against the sword, creating sparks that fed to the blonde man's head. But he wasn't about to back down. He asked his comrades why they were panicking since with him today they would definitely get their first kill, whereupon he chopped his sword right into the cat's chest. A notification sounded, signaling that the monster was distracted by the tank. Then he ordered the others to attack the beast. The newcomers were immediately enthusiastic, declaring that with Month at the helm, they could definitely do anything, whereupon they prepared to attack. Everyone took their position, after which the monster was attacked from all sides, the cat receiving fire and magic damage. Meanwhile, Sunny stood silently and healed into the team in no hurry to engage, deciding that it would be better to wait out the opportune moment. Watching Monthly, the guy noticed that his mechanical skill is actually pretty good. He holds his stance well and has excellent timing. Meanwhile, the leader clarified that the Grim Lord was not a newcomer and thus asked for help to take care of these newcomers with him. He added, leaving the cleric role on him, at which time Sunny asked himself that he had just been made a mere support. After a few seconds, the ghost cat's health dropped to a minimum, after which it went into a frenzy. This meant the arrival of the second stage, during which the boss becomes several times stronger and deadlier. During rabies, the cat's speed and damage increase. As it is only a beginner boss, this effect is time-limited. As long as Sleeping Moon continues to control the battlefield, it shouldn't be any problem with his level of play. At this time, the panting leader said that he was too fast, so he couldn't hit him, let alone finish him off. But after the boss reached red blood, he started making too many mistakes. Either he started panicking or ran out of mana. He began to play as if he was a completely different person. At the same second, the monster knocked him to the ground, not giving him a chance to get up. Monthly loudly and grudgingly announced that he had pressed the wrong key and couldn't keep the boss on him, then asked everyone to be more careful. Sunny continued to watch silently as they continued the battle and were about to attack, right after he stabilized the provocation on himself. After another failure, the leader asked what to do since he was running right at him, but Sunny was still biding his time. Meanwhile, Fallen Sun loudly declared that he was going to die anyway, so we should continue the battle, after which he began to pistol whip the monster. However, these attempts failed to do any damage to the monster, and so it simply ignored the bullets that hit it. When the cat got too close, the guy realized he wouldn't have time to dodge, so he missed a decisive blow to himself. He apologized before disappearing, while the wizard yelled that the cat was already running at him, and that he had screwed up. Unlike Fallen Sun, the wizard tried to run away, loudly proclaiming his help, but the clawed paw was already catching up with him. Looking at his companions, Sleeping Moon tiredly asked what kind of mockery this was, and how they could die so easily. He then asked the Grim Lord if he still had mana, because if they combined their strength, they would definitely be able to win without any problems. But as soon as the guy turned his attention to the one he'd assigned as a sap order, he was immediately surprised to see him relaxed against a tree. After which Sunny turned his head with a smile and wrote in chat that he was fine. He should worry about himself first. Reacting lightning fast, the leader of the group began fending off the blows that the ghost cat was throwing, unwilling to stop. A nearly exhausted monk asked Lord to stop bullying and asked to be healed, for there was a bleeding hanging over him. Sunny replied that he couldn't because if he did, he'd provoke him into doing it to himself, in response to which the blonde promised that wouldn't happen. However, the latter didn't dare to listen to the order, continuing to watch the group leader fight the boss alone. Muntz shouted loudly in chat that he wouldn't provoke him to himself and asked him to believe it. And when asked what to do, he asked for a quick whiff of it. Lord wrote in chat that he was moving well and pushing buttons again, then asked if he had stopped pretending. However, what a shame. He can't kill the boss alone, letting the rest of the group die on a guaranteed rule changed to sample. He needed at least some command. The only thing left was to choose the right moment to miss. Killing all the teammates, the cat would be left alone with him. Thus, he had guaranteed himself the entire reward. After reading this, Monthly realized that the Lord had understood everything from the beginning. Realizing that this guy was smart, he replied that he really wanted to get rid of these newcomers. And with his yelling, he was causing more panic, and they didn't suspect a thing. In such a situation, the healer is usually then and they're trying to save his team by using skills. By these actions, he would focus the boss on himself. He would have died after that. But Month miscalculated. This guy kept as far away from the others as possible the whole time. But that's impossible. I mean, he tried to treat everyone as much as possible, but maybe he was able to do everything so perfectly in such a beat 'em. However, while the group leader was reasoning about it, a ghost cat jumped on him from above and was able to inflict significant damage with its claws. Month realized that he would definitely die if the Lord didn't hex him, whereupon he suggested that he forget about it and get his act together. Fighting off the monster and bleeding, he asked his ally, what difference did it make? After all, they didn't know those guys, and by teaming up they could win. He offered to split the reward in half, which was a great deal. But Sunny, smirking, replied that he wanted it all. Month decided to suggest that the Lord should pick what he wanted first, and afterward he would take what was left, but he didn't fall for that. Then the blonde man shouted that if he died, the man would get nothing because he would die following him with no way to kill the boss. Sunny wrote in chat that he could not be worried about him, after which he asked the group leader to just die and let him finish. The blonde realized that he had run out of arguments to try and negotiate with the guy, and so there was nothing he could do. With a sweep of his huge paw, the Midnight Cat delivered a decisive blow to the leader of the group, slicing him in half before losing all of his health and disappearing. Sleeping Moon approached the Grim Lord, saying that he would pay for it. After Sunny heard that there would be no place for him on the 10th server, he looked into the red eyes of the boss, who growled with anger. Now it was his time to act. The guy reached behind his back, taking out the umbrella of 1,000 probabilities. While the cat rushed to attack, the guy reacted lightning fast, stepping in front of the weapon and unfolding it to change to the shape he wanted. In the next second, the umbrella took on the shape of a spear, thus allowing him to keep the proper distance from the monster's claws. The transformation of the weapon was accompanied by a bright light that illuminated the joyful face of the hero, ready to rush into battle. After that, he used the spearman's skill, Dragon Fong, with which he tried to attack the embittered beast head-on. When Schnei woke up, she shrieked that she had fallen asleep unintentionally, since it's hard to stay up late at that age. Then noticed that someone had tucked her in. She glanced at Sunny, who continued to play carefree, and thought it was his jacket. He's contentedly thoughtful, though it doesn't seem that way. However, she was very confused by the stench coming from the jacket. She wondered how long it had not been washed, but she did not dare to ask aloud. Suddenly, the girl noticed the guy's fingers, which were fluently fumbling on the keyboard, not stopping for a moment. She thought his hands were quite beautiful, very thin, with long fingers, and he took very good care of his nails. It didn't match his appearance at all, after which she glanced at the monitor, thinking that there was no way he was stuck in a newcomer village. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed that the guy was single-handedly fighting the enraged boss, finishing him off. People on the street who were passing by the internet cafe heard a loud female scream as she asked about the first murder. Shawnee stated that it was cool. He did take the first kill on a hidden boss and even took it solo, asking how he did it. The guy replied that it was no big deal. All the team died. The boss health was almost at 0. The girl congratulated him on this achievement. She was pleased that the first murder of the hidden boss had taken place in her cafe, and so she held out a can of drink to him, saying that she was very pleased. The first kill will stay on the list forever. Although the Midnight Cat in the initial boss is a different story, as the server has only just opened, but the first kills on the later bosses will be impossible to get without tactics and teamwork. This is prey for professional teams. She then decided to take a look at what fell out to him. There were 5 cat claws, a wool breastplate, and some pretty good valuable materials. He also got a skill book right off the initial boss. With Shawnee's excitement, she asked what was wrong with his luck. The number of skill points a Maxwell player can gain is 4,000, and this item is a way to surpass that limit. In the next second, the owner got another shock when she saw that Sunny had decided to use it right away despite the rarity of the item. The guy said it's tied to the account and can't be transferred, though most people will think first before using it. Just as suddenly, they noticed a chat in which Sleepy Moon wrote that newcomer Grim Lord wasn't treating the co-RTs to steal the hidden boss. The copied message went one after another. Someone even asked him to stop, but he continued to warn the players. When asked what was going on and who was insulting him, Sunny decided to retell her everything that had happened. After which, Shawnee yelled that he had no shame. And then she looked into the calm guy's face and asked him if he was angry. But he said he was very angry, but he didn't look that way. Holding a cigarette in his mouth, Sunny said that just because he was angry didn't mean he had to show it to everyone around him, which would only make it worse. For a split second, the girl thought Sunny had just smiled. It wasn't surprising since he had picked up the first kill and gotten a rare item. However, there was no other reaction. Oh well, even after being slandered, the expression on his face remained the same. During their brief conversation, the hero made his way to a new location near which there were also quite a few people gathered around where people were assembling a team. As he walked towards the gate, he could hear whispers from various players where his nickname was heard from time to time, but it didn't confuse him in any way. Schnei commented aloud that this Sleepy Moon was a very nasty individual since Sunny had just shown up in the system alert. At the entrance to the Green Forest, his name is written. He's too conspicuous. And now, no one wants to be on the same team with him. All the players now know about him. Suddenly, the Grim Lord turned his attention to a loudly laughing guy whom he immediately recognized from the recent dungeon. Sleepy Moon shouted that he would make him regret getting on this server, then offered to spam together some more. In that same second, Sunny had an idea that made him want to both deal with Monthly and get Spot on the team. As he approached the blonde man, he called out to him and waved his hand. He was startled by surprise and shrieked, recognizing the impudent man. Sunny asked that they were missing one person, so why don't they add him to the team by offering to pump together? Smirking, the blonde asked what was wrong, figuring the guy had come for mercy, calling him really pathetic. He then noticed with surprise that they had received a request to join the group from the Grim Lord, causing him to stiffen briefly. Sunny confirmed what he said, adding that he was one man short of a teammate and therefore they could bring him along. When asked if he was sick, the hero replied that he was alone, just missing a participant. Everyone knows the basics. There's a need for teamwork. After hearing the explanation about the basics, Monlay said to himself that this guy was pissing him the hell off, but he didn't say anything out loud. He also didn't understand what was wrong with his tone. He had really decided to join them, clearly up to some sort of game. His ally asked in team chat what he was thinking, rushing him to add this guy. But the blonde was still pondering. There were too many people gathered, so their team didn't want conflict because they are well aware that they are wrong now. We just need to finish him off there. Somewhere outsiders. All from members of their fraternal guild. Month thought made sense. And since he had come into his own hands, let him not blame him for it. But he would be sure to finish him off. A notification sounded that the Grim Lord had joined the team. Schnei cringed. Wasn't this the thief who had slandered him? When asked why he teamed up with them, Sunny said because he didn't have his own team. But the girl didn't accept that argument. She stated that it would be better if he went solo. He has a pretty good weapon, so he could pump solo, not necessarily form a team. But if you think carefully, he has a silver weapon that is several times the damage output of a normal weapon. There's no point in him teaming up with someone to go through the Green Forest unless he wants to team up to go through the hidden boss. Thinking back to her first victory over the boss, Shawnee reflected that it was definitely not ordinary luck, but a well-thought-out move. Looking at the guy for the nth time, she asked herself what kind of man she had taken, then said she would go to sleep and find out in the morning if he was dead. She also added that if he caught a big fish, she would treat him as something, for his luck was too good. It's like the guy feels her and knows how he needs to act in a way that maximizes his advantage. Waving goodbye but not looking in her direction, Sunny asked his boss to be careful and continued playing. Upon entering the verdant forest, the group immediately ran into enemy wolves that were attacking the group from all directions. Turning to his comrade, Monthly via private messages ordered Tyler to proceed with the plan. After relaying this order to the others, they began to beat the beasts back towards the Grim Lord, saying that they had accidentally done so. The guy immediately realized what was up when he noticed that each member of the group was sending another unkillable mob at him. However, Sunny didn't give any sign, only pulling out the umbrella of 1,000 probabilities while the mobs completely surrounded him, not giving him a pass. Month asked Lord if he could handle them alone, for it would be a shame to die from these weak mobs in a dungeon. The smiling fellow replied that he shouldn't help as he could easily handle it alone, then swung at the nearest beast. After that, all the beasts began to scatter under his blows, and group attacks didn't bear any fruit. The hero easily held the defense. To the dumbfounded looks of his co-commanders, Sunny slaughtered wolves left and right, not considering them anything super complicated. The others asked in shock how this was even possible and how a rookie could play like that. Then they realized he was definitely an experienced player. Tyler remarked that with his skills, the Lord could finish this raid alone, noting that the wolves were unable to resist him. Munt said that he was a healer last time, so he didn't know anything about his combat skills. Plus, he had no problem defeating the Midnight Cat. The bottom line was that his skills surpassed them by several times, and thus he was a very dangerous opponent. Having defeated the last wolf, Sunny headed toward his comrades, who had no words to describe what they had just seen. He asked why they were standing around like this, to which Tyler decided to reply that it was too easy and boring. They're now almost at level 10, so a group unanimous decision was made to temporarily change locations. Then the guy suggested going to the spider cave. Upon hearing this, Monthly decided it was an amazing choice. They couldn't finish him off in the green forest, but that doesn't mean they can't teach him a lesson in the spider cave, where it's far more dangerous. This is an area that is strongly discouraged at level 10. Even experienced teams always try to avoid it. Upon reaching the spider's cave, the group began to look around, finding a large number of slimy cocoons and the bodies of fallen warriors. Walking on, every player was seized with a shiver. For this place by its atmosphere alone could terrify anyone, especially a low-ranking one. Letting the Lord lead the way, they watched him oblivious to the fact that beneath their feet and lay bones with spiders running around on them. In a private chat, the guys wrote that they already regret their words because they play too little to go here, but they have to move on. But they were only interested in whether they would be alive after he died, because if there was one less of them, it would be problematic to survive. It's only been a few hours since the server opened. If the big guilds haven't gotten their hands on this, then this will be the first boss kill. They unanimously decided to use this guy as bait, gather resources from the first, and then just lure him to the boss. Sunny asked what happened to them. They are unusually quiet today, to which you were told they just had some guild issues. Tyler asked if everyone had brought the antidote with them, to which Lord replied in the negative, explaining that it was useless. Suddenly, everyone simultaneously felt something incredibly fast rushing towards them, rustling a few paws. When a spider jumped up, the entire team froze in fear as they looked at the Lord, who was in a state of complete calm. A tense sleeping moon realized that danger had appeared. The green spider in the vicinity was imposing a poisoning effect. Then he remembered the words of the Lord who had just said that he hadn't brought the antidote with him. Therefore, this fool would die of poisoning. At the same second, contrary to the blonde's thoughts, Sunny swung his umbrella, sending the arthropod flying with a single blow. A group of players looked up and noticed a spider flying above them, spinning around, unable to group up. Grim Lord, I decided not to wait for the spider to go to the ground. Instead, I headed towards it myself, jumping up high, unable to attack and defend in the air. The spider was forced to receive 4 hits from the hero. The dumbfounded group at first thought they were all imagining that the guy had hit 4 hits in a row, but it was all real. The spider itself flew back against the wall, shattering the stone with a clatter, but it didn't take enough damage itself to die. One player had heard that you could only do such a combo if your speed was over 170, but Tyler thought otherwise. After changing professions, there's a bonus to attack speed. Also, weapons play a huge role. They probably have a bonus to attack speed. You have to be very fast, at least 200 to maneuver like that. And it seems even their head can't match it. As everyone drew conclusions, the whole group looked at Sleepy Moon, asking who the hell they were trying to provoke. Meanwhile, after 17 strikes in a row, Sunny had scored a crushing victory, finally finishing off the spider without taking any damage. However, now all the monster's attention is on him. The thing is that there's no poison on him because he hasn't been hit once. They all wondered if a level 10 character could deal with 7 monsters at once without getting killed. And they noticed Lord's excellent fighting skills and good movement. With such a technique, it was quite possible to do the impossible. They marveled at the strength of the one they wanted to betray. And so they rushed into battle, deciding to share the battle with their brother, the Grim Lord. One of them asked not to interfere with the master's fighting, while Munt tried to stop them by asking if they weren't going to kill him. Enveloped in inspiration and rage, the 3 guys shrieked that they'd mopped up the whole thing and managed it pretty quickly, adding that their master was an imba. After that, they wanted to head towards the boss, but the boss beat them to it, landing right in front of them, raising a veil of dust in the air. The Spider King was level 15 and had a fairly large amount of health, and was several times larger than his counterparts in size. The monster created a poisonous mist, after which Tyler ordered everyone to quickly drink their antidotes. One of the guys offered Lord his drink, but the latter replied that there was no need for that. He was asked how he was going to play after the poisoning effect was imposed. The hero then offered a look at his status window. It said they were still poisoned, which proved his point. Sunny explained that the antidote level wasn't enough. The boss was simply higher level. Then Monthly suggested that they couldn't win. Then he asked me to be patient and wait for him for a while, and then he rushed out without warning anyone. When the spider saw the approaching hero, it immediately raised its paw to move the small bug out of his way. Getting closer to his opponent, Lord began to slide on his back, dodging a paw and striking directly into the monster's belly. This damage was enough to pierce the shell and make the spider bleed, after which the guy hurriedly got to his feet. When the king was finished, Sunny ordered one to stand at 1 o'clock, and the rest to stand at 7 and 9 o'clock and keep a distance of 2 m. Everyone immediately understood the order, whereupon the Lord asked the little one to stand up for 4 hours. He addressed Month directly. He stood stunned for a second, trying to figure out if this guy was talking to him, but then anger began to take over. He asked if he had just called him a baby, adding that it was disgusting, but the others asked him not to slow the team down. The blonde man loudly asked everyone to shut up, asking Lord not to call him that again. Then he wondered why they should listen to him. After all, he is the leader of the band. Then he decided he wouldn't listen to Lord. However, he subconsciously became a 4chan anyway. He responded to the comments by saying that he too thought it was a favorable position. Then he asked the Lord to say what he was going to do next. Looking at the formation of the team, Sunny asked the leader to be patient, after which he asked everyone to stand there and not move. Meanwhile, the Spider King recovered, making an impossibly high leap towards Sleeping Moon. The dumbfounded guy thought it was flying right at him. It didn't seem like a strategy. He was just trying to return the favor. With fear and anger, he mentally turned to the Grim Lord, stating that his plan had gone too far. He joined his group, acting like he knew nothing, then showing off some obscure trick. When Go idiots start praising him and doing everything he says, it belittles him as the leader of the group. Moreover, he had been foolish enough to fall into his trap, and now he would become a laughingstock. Then he called the Lord a murderer. Moon prepared himself for his fate by looking at the spider flying at him. But at the very last second, Sunny came up. Putting his umbrella in front of him, he repelled the attack, thus saving the leader of the group, who didn't understand why he did it. The guy flew into the air, then delivering another blow to the spider, lifting into the air and giving his group time. He then asked everyone to get their skills ready, for they were about to start. 1 hour, you need to use a front kick. Everyone noticed that the spider shifted to the left, thus moving closer to the man who would strike it next. The one who stood at 9 o'clock should use piercing blows. Accepting the order, the guy started swinging his sword. The next order was to use dissection on whoever was at 7 o'clock. All was executed flawlessly. In the same second, the monster shifted to the right, thus losing its balance, and losing the ability to watch both sides at the same time. At 4 o'clock, Little Monthly was to attack. He quietly bellowed when once again he heard himself addressed in such a manner. This anger betrayed him even more strength to attack, after which he declared that he didn't need his instructions, noting that he had a dirty strategy. They pushed the spider back and forth just like pinball. However, this tactic worked, causing the monster to not be able to figure out who to attack. After a few minutes, the health gain king dropped to 0. Then, a system notification popped up for the first kill. The 3 players immediately shouted happily that they had gotten their first kills, and they had never even dreamed of such a thing. At the same time, there were other players in another spider cave who were also eager to get their first kill, but noticed that they were ahead of them. The guy roughly threw the axe away, loudly, stating that they only needed 10 seconds. In the notice, he noticed the name of the Grim Lord. Someone asked if he was the guy who picked up the first Midnight Cat kill. He'd already shown up in 2 system notifications. The leader of the Blue Stream Guild, Azure Stream, asked to contact all of their people and tell them to look into it. Later at the Bluebrook Guild base, a guild member said that the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. After all, they promised to get all the records on this server, but managed to fail on the first day, being only 10 seconds late. And his co-guilder asked him to stop talking and look at Azure Stream, who looked like watered down. Of course, he wasn't happy. They were supposed to be one of the top 5 guilds. They always collected the first kills before anyone else. But someone has already gone around them twice. The guild leader said he can actually hear them, and he's not angry, just puzzled. Sleepy Moon was the one who took him to the Green Forest. He said that the Grim Lord tried to kill his allies to steal the first kill. Lord is a pro player who was hired by the guild, and the people on his team, on the other hand, don't look like experienced players. In other words, if their reports are correct, Lord took the first 2 kills by completely random commands. No one dared to say a word, for what their leader said was the purest truth, which no one could dispute. Just as suddenly, a system notification sounded in which the Spider Lord was killed again. But now the team looked a little different. All of the guild members read the notifications carefully, reacting differently to this event. But the conclusion was the same for everyone. Azure Stream was the most surprised of all, for just now his words and conjectures had been confirmed right in front of him. This time the leader of the group was the Grim Lord, and it was under his command that the Spider Lord was killed. Pact decided to take a break. Taking off his headphones, He rubbed his face with his hand and sighed heavily, for he had been troubled by the grim lord who had come out of nowhere. The guy whose name was Simon approached Lord saying that they would have to get to know each other better, but he had no idea about it. Meanwhile, in the spider cave, a small group of players stood around the corpse of a huge spider that had just been defeated. One of the guys said that when Lord stated that he could kill the hidden boss, he didn't believe him. Everyone agreed with his thoughts. After all, he took on the roles of attacker, healer, tactician, and tank and directed them in battle. Even pro players couldn't do that. Tyler told Lord that 4 pieces of the strong silk he wanted fell off the spider. Also, other things fell off it. Sunny thanked him, telling him that he only wanted them. They could have the rest since they deserved it. However, the guys asked him not to be so shy, adding that he should choose to do something else. As they did, they also noticed that a rare purple weapon had fallen off the spider, which was definitely for a swordsman. Even if you don't use swords, if you equip it, it can definitely come in handy now for later pumping. They decided to give it to the Grim Lord, for if it wasn't for his guidance, they would never have gotten these things. But Sunny replied that if it wasn't for their teamwork, it would have been a little harder for him to defeat the boss on his own. The guy shocked thought he said a little more complicated instead of impossible, meaning he could do without their help. Looking at this picture from the side, Sleepy Moon began to get more and more annoyed until he dared to speak. He turned loudly to the hero, drawing his attention to himself. The latter looked calmly at the shouting and disgruntled guy. The blonde pointed a finger at him that he was quite an accomplished player, and he acknowledged that, but there was something he wanted to tell him. The pissed-off guy promised to catch up with him one day to fight and see who would be stronger. Instead of any response, Sunny continued to stare silently at the guy who was breathing heavily, feeling uncomfortable with the pause that had come. Deciding to break the silence, the Lord wished him luck with an indifferent look. Realizing that this moment would not come soon, Muntz was surprised by this response while his team began to cheer him on, which was very cool. The one asked to stop laughing at him, because that's how rivalries are supposed to work. On the allies, just asked him to give up. As the entire group exited the cave, Tyler and the other players asked if they could add the Grim Lord as a friend. Schnei woke up thinking that if he hadn't had a heart attack that year, he would have retired as he wanted to if he were still alive and found out about her not going to college. How much he would be upset about it. The girl cleaned herself up, got ready, and headed to the first floor of the club. Stated she never once regretted it. After all, he had worked so hard, so now this club was very popular, and now she could see the halls filled. It only took 9 persistent years, but the result was worth it, as they are now reaping the rewards of their labors. As expected of Glory, even though it was early morning, many people had arrived thanks to the opening of Server 10. She made her way to the smoking area. There she found Sunny, whom she immediately hit over the head, for he had been playing all night without taking a break. Schnei asked what level he had gotten to. In response, she heard 17. Didn't think getting it overnight was very fast. She wondered how many first kills he'd made, to which she heard that he'd gotten them from the Imperial Spider and Spider-Lord. She thought in shock that if you added the Midnight Cat to that, this guy was able to get 3 first kills in one night. After which, she decided that he must be playing on some godlike team. And so, she asked to let him watch. The girl cringed loudly when she spotted the very same Sleepy Moon from last night who had tried to slander Sunny. She asked that he ended up working for them the rest of the night, stripped of the last of his pride. But he said it wasn't that bad. After all, they had unanimously insisted that he choose the fallen items first, and there was nothing he could do about it. Schnei was surprised that he was able to make an enemy as his subordinate, while the guy said he was tired, so he was going to go get some sleep. The girl was delighted with him, so she offered to have a snack before going to bed, but he said he'd eat after he woke up. The guy went back to the small storage room on the 2nd floor of the internet cafe that was his temporary room. He noticed a cup on a nightstand with a packed toothbrush and toothpaste in it and a note attached to the cup. Schnei wrote that it was for him since he didn't bring anything with him here and the cost of these items would not be deducted from his paycheck. He mentally thanked his boss, who turned out to be very caring, after which Sunny wrapped himself in a blanket and fell asleep. When it was 9 o'clock at night, the guy went down to the first floor as a crowd of people gathered around the TV, deciding that something had happened. As he got closer, he heard someone calling his name from the speakers and also mentioning his past account. Interest took over, and so he headed toward the cluster of people to see what they were saying about him. In addition to Veda's voice, he could hear people whispering about the fact that a great player like Sunny had decided to retire. 3-time league champion, 3-time most important player honoree, and 2-time rising star. As a team player, Sunny represents the pinnacle of the Glory Professional League. He is the benchmark to which all players aspire. They are grateful for these beautiful moments that Sunny gave them. And now the team manager wants to make a statement. Because of his recent failures, Sunny decided to voluntarily retire, but the Magnificent Era has always been ready for something like this. Their newest member is sure to be the next god warrior in the professional league. He will once again lead the magnificent era to the top of the league. The guy was tired of listening to this news, and so he decided to get some fresh air and get ready for his work shift. Stepping outside, the guy exhaled a club of steam as he suddenly heard a girlish voice nearby that refused to believe it. He noticed Shawnee saying that Sunny's career was still too far from over, and she didn't believe he had voluntarily resigned. Asking her boss if she was crying, she yelled that he was being facetious, then asked if he was feeling any emotion at all. Looking up, the lad replied that of course he wasn't. He had just gone outside for he couldn't listen to any more of this. First, Shawnee kicked him out. Then, asking if he had anything to wipe his eyes with, Sunny offered a pack of cigarettes. When the guy smoked, the owner stated that she was in a bad mood, so she ordered him to go on duty. When he entered the building, he asked if he could play at the front desk. Shawnee said he could use that computer. Everything he needed to know written down in the staff manual. And while the guy became a page, the owner announced that she was going to bed. Putting aside his notebook, Sunny put on his headphones and inserted his player's card, ready to enter the game for more adventures. He found himself in the middle of a forest road with an incredible amount of players and NPCs commiserating with each other. At the same second, Tyler called out to him, saying loudly that they were waiting for him. Along with him were the rest of the night group, except for Monthly. Toth is very upset about the news that Sunny is retiring, so he's not coming since Sunny is his idol. The hero said that since they didn't have one person, it would be a bit difficult to kill the hidden boss of the Spider Cave if they met him again. He decided there was no point in going there again, and then suggested we go to the skeleton graveyard. Everyone unanimously agreed. They arrived at a location surrounded by tombstones and green lights accessed from level 15. Tyler asked Lord if he needed anything in this particular dungeon. He replied that he needed a skeleton warrior's saber. The guy thought that it was useless since it was decorative, but if this was what the Grim Lord wanted, he must definitely have a reason. Kneeling down, the whole group asked the dungeon to give them a hidden boss. Sunny noticed that they had developed a love for killing bosses. In the same second, their screams provoked the regular skeletons, who began to rise from the ground, roaring loudly. Before the guys could say anything about the mob showing up, Sunny had already rushed into the fray, pulling out his umbrella and using a tug. In a moment, he had already killed 3 of them, while the rest of the group just looked at their leader in delight. However, they did not want to lag behind, and so they rushed into battle themselves, destroying the skeletons one by one. Tyler noticed that these mobs spawned randomly, after which he asked why there were so many of them then, since they were hard to fight off. In addition to attacking, the Grim Lord had time to heal his allies, who in turn thanked the leader for his help. Since Sunny wasn't using voice chat, and he couldn't respond to his allies, he was completely focused on the fight. The last skeleton was crushed by Lord, piercing it with his umbrella, creating a powerful shockwave, thus bringing victory to the team. They then began to examine the rewards, happy that a fragment of blue equipment had fallen from them. But they still hadn't encountered the hidden boss. Then Sunny proposed to go through this dungeon again, to which the whole team agreed because they were eager to see the leader in action again. After a while, Tyler stated that this was their 3rd time here, so the sweep should go smoothly, but he got excited pretty early on. The first to sense the danger was the Grim Lord, who ordered his allies to retreat quickly. In the same second, the ground in front of them exploded, raising the air with rocks and a cloud of dust, behind which lurked the true danger. The dungeon boss appeared, a level 20 skeleton warrior who was fully clad in corrosion-covered lats. The 3 boys were immediately frightened and ran screaming towards their leader, who remained unfailingly calm. Then a system notification appeared, informing them that they had entered the resting place of the skeleton warrior. Sunny was glad that the hidden boss had finally shown up, even though after 2 tries, he had no hope of meeting him. Shawnee appeared behind him with a mask on her face and stated that she didn't think Sunny should resign. The guy freaked out, told his boss that it's midnight. And not only is she awake, but she's also walking around with a mask on her face like she's cosplaying a ghost. As the girl sat down at a nearby computer, Tyler heard a female voice in the chat room, then asked Lord if it was his girlfriend talking. Shawnee said it was because he packed himself so high, which is why when Heir got in trouble, he was thrown out first. She has always followed this team and their competitions, but she feels like Sunny isn't as strong now as he used to be. The professional league is becoming more mature, and now it's full of strong players. Then she asked the guy if he was listening to her, but Sunny only calmly asked her to help him find a guide. Shawnee leaned back in her chair, asked what kind of guide he was interested in. The guy replied that he needed a skeleton warrior guide. Hearing this, the girl froze dumbfounded, looking at her subordinate. She then loudly asked why he didn't read it before engaging in a fight with the boss. But the guy didn't say anything to that. Sunny said they forgot to watch the guide. And Shawnee, after taking off her mask, asked to be reminded which boss they were talking about. The guy replied, adding that he needed to know how to make the saber fall off him with a 100% chance. The girl didn't understand what he needed it for. After all, she's nothing more than a piece of jewelry. So, no one is after her specifically, as she suddenly actually found a guide written by Sunny himself. He's definitely a big Sunny fan. No wonder he knows about it. The guy was interested in how many times you have to hit the belt buckle. Schnei replied, 24 times. There's also a picture here of the place to hit. Sunny asked to enlarge and let me see. The girl said the boss was trying very hard to help him, but he took a glimpse and quickly thanked her. Immediately yelled that she put a lot of effort into the search, and he just took a look, after which asked for more attention. While the guy was standing AFK, the rest of the team was calling for him because if he didn't come back as soon as possible, no amount of guiding would save them. They were already at their limit because the boss went into attack mode, and it was very difficult for them to defend against such a monster. Just as suddenly they noticed someone using the treatment on Tyler, guessing that the Grim Lord had returned. The hero stood at full alert and apologized for the delay. But in the meantime, he had gotten all the information he wanted. A beep sounded. One of the players claimed to have regained health as well, but it caused the boss to look away from him. But the guy claimed that was exactly what he was after, and then rushed to the attack while the others asked what the technique was. Along the way, Sunny gave orders for Field 7 to run to the left and Cloud Sunset to get behind. Drifting Stream should go to the right. All at once accepted the instruction, but was asked if Tut was going to go at him head-on. He answered in the affirmative. The first thing that caught the hero's attention was a belt buckle that really stood out among the rest of the boss's attire. As the skeleton warrior swung, Sunny managed to land 4 strikes before bouncing off the monster's blow, increasing the distance. With a sharp jerk, he approached again, continuing to attack the buckler, striking for the 8th time, the skeleton's slowness playing to his advantage. While the boss raised his sword, the hero attacked nothing but the buckler, striking for the 11th strike in a row. One player said that a character with no specialization takes no damage while fighting from the front, and he did the least damage. Shocked Shawnee was looking at Sunny's actions. I said that he has to dodge all the time, but he still hasn't botched a combo. She felt as if he could stuff that combo until the end of time, then asked why he needed the guide. Without changing his expression, the guy replied that it was necessary just in case, but it was obvious he was doing just fine without it. He hadn't fought this boss in a long time and thought he had forgotten how many hits were needed, so he decided to reassure himself. It would have been bad if he had inadvertently killed him before striking 24 times. But now everything was under his strict control. As soon as the last 24 blows were struck, the skeleton let go of his sword, screaming loudly, after which the guy decided to chop off his arm. The notification that the skeleton warrior had been killed sounded. No one had time to realize when and how it ended, not because everyone was just standing still. Seeing that a saber had indeed fallen out of the boss, the hero considered it a success, after which he quickly cleaned it up. The rest of the team and the guys felt devastated as they win every time without putting in any effort. A surprised Shawnee remarked that she had only heard 20 strikes on the buckle, but the guide clearly stated that 24 strikes were needed. Turning around, Sunny replied with 4 stabbing punches, totaling as many as he needed to win. She probably didn't hear them as they were too fast, but that was what confused the girl into not noticing them. She reasoned that he was constantly moving the camera, after which she said she was tired, reminding him that it was his work shift. At that very second, the guy said they couldn't make it to play all night, and so they decided to call a night. At the same second, 18 friend requests sent to him by Azure Stream popped up in front of Lord's face. When he accepted this very determined man's request and opened the chat room, Pac introduced himself, saying he was from the Blue Creek Guild. Sunny reflected that the only person he knew in this guild was Juan and his Blue Rain, but he didn't know about this man. Meanwhile, sitting at his computer, Simon thought that now that he knew who he was communicating with, he should be honored. At the suggestion of joining them in the dungeon, the Grim Lord asked why they needed him. The annoyed guy mentally replied that, but he had taken both of the first 2 kills. So, their guild couldn't accomplish anything in this dungeon. You can't help but recognize his good skills because it's easier to find 10,000 soldiers than 1 general. So, you should try to get together with him. Simon offered to let him take the purple equipment that fell out in return for helping them sing the passing record. Sunny replied that he didn't need the purple outfit. He was far more interested in getting rare materials. Simon picked up on that. When asked what materials they needed, the Lord said 72 pieces of spider silk that falls from a low-level dungeon. He will also need the Myethal pendants that fall from the White Witch. These pendants don't have any properties, so they're just jewelry. All of his requests are so petty, they can easily fulfill them as many times as they need to. For their guild, they are petty. In the same second, the guy froze in surprise when the Lord asked for 8 pieces of white wolf fangs, which was already hard to get. White wolf fangs are materials that drop from the ice forest boss. But most importantly, each player can only enter the forest 4 times per day. Hidden bosses appear rarely as it is. The chance that this boss will be exactly a white wolf is 2, 3, 8 fangs is too much. Simon was confident he could get together with this player at a moderate price to get help and see him in action. He began to write that his demands were too great and therefore would have to choose rather than requesting everything at once. He decided to haggle with the Lord, and he decided to give up the mythal pendant. Simon shrieked that it wasn't the problem at all. For a while, the guy was shaking with resentment, for he realized that he was having a hard time communicating with a player like the Grimlord. Sonny asked how much he thought it would be adequate to ask for. The man offered him the choice of either silk or fangs. Annoyed, Simon waited for an answer, and in the same second, the Lord decided to choose white wolf fangs, which didn't make the guy very happy. After all, this player is clearly not stupid, knows that fangs are far more valuable than silk. Yet, he was able to negotiate with this guy somehow. Suddenly, Lord asked what he thought about adding some more elastic silk to it, which he also needed. Dumbfounded, Simon decided that he had no shame or conscience at all. While the interlocutor offered to add only 40 grand, Simon, who figured he had already made a deal with the Lord, tried to figure out what was wrong with the man, but he kept haggling. Sonny, with a calm face, continued to write the possible amount of silk in the chat room, gradually decreasing the number, stopping at 25. After that, the number went down by 1, and every such message was like a stab in the heart for Simon. He then yelled that he couldn't take it anymore. After asking what was wrong with him, he said that he was actually reducing their numbers 1 by 1, but a guild like Bluster definitely shouldn't bargain over a single piece of silk. It would be too embarrassing. Throwing himself on the back of the chair, the guy said they'd get it all, then that he was finally able to deal with him. Suddenly, the Lord asked for a couple more mythal pendants, for he said he didn't care about them. Simon didn't care anymore. He just wanted it to be over, so he calmly replied that he would get it all. Sonny asked how they would divide the stuff from the hidden boss. He was told that he would be the first to choose what to pick up. Azure Stream reminded him to change his class before heading out, but he replied that it wasn't necessary. Putting his head on the table, Simon shouted that he just wanted to come to an understanding with him, but instead had a bargain, requesting so much material. Looks like he's taking a contract job, not likely to make every effort to help them. Well, suddenly he thought that the one might be even stronger than their guild's elite. Wouldn't be able to break the record just by swinging a weapon. But that's just impossible. He's only at level 20, and he's just flushed a whole bunch of hard-to-find materials down the toilet. After a while, the members of the Blue Stream Guild reached the Chilling Forest, which was level 20 and was a challenge for many players. The wizard immediately asked Pack how the conversation with that man had gone. The guy replied that he had agreed and should be coming over soon. He then turned to everyone else, said that the expert he had called would be here soon, and then asked who would give him a seat. The archer replied that he would sit back this time. Pack thought that the Lord was still gone, so he didn't realize if he could count on him. At the same second, Sonny walked up and the tank shrieked that it was Glory's world, then asked why he was wearing similar clothes. The Lord wore the shoulder pads of a knight, the combat gloves of a swordsman, and the scarf of a mage, which at first glance were incompatible. Azure Stream noticed this assemblage of different classes, and said that he thought the man was joking when he said he wouldn't choose a class. After which he decided to introduce him to everyone. He pointed to Thunderlight, Flower Lantern, and Floating Boat, who were the elites of the guild. Their classes, as well as their equipment, were selected specifically to break the record of the next dungeon. Sonny said hello, asking for a second to get ready. Hawk replied that he could join the team when he was ready. The guild chat immediately started asking if someone like him could help them break the record, but everyone was doubtful. Simon, looking at the monitor screen, only sighed heavily. Realizing that this guy was very difficult to play with, he was starting to get annoyed, and he didn't understand what the Grimlord was even doing or why he kept delaying their team. The healer remarked that maybe this guy doesn't pick his class because he wants to play a character with no specialization. Such characters are a thing of the past. If you do not choose a class, you will not be able to pass the task of Ascension. They will not be able to pump above level 50. Even if he changes class after he reaches level 50, he will still lack attribute points. Then they asked Pack if he had seen who he had found.